Hello and welcome to Monday's maths lesson, where we're going to go through the answers for the work we did on Friday in our Power Maths books. Okay, so for this first one, it's asking us to use all the digit cards. So we need to use the 6, the 4, the 3 and the 2 to make fractions that complete this statement. So we need to find a fraction that's smaller than a half and bigger than a half. Now, this kind of problem might be a little bit of trial and error. You might need to try a few solutions. Oh, no, that's not quite worked. And then you might need to keep changing the numbers around until you find one that does. So for the first one, I'm going to start off with trial and error. So I'm going to start off by thinking they're probably not going to be improper fractions, which means that my numerator has always got to be smaller than my denominator. So 2 is the smallest number that we've got there. So that's going to be a numerator. So let's say I had it as 2/3. Well, 2/3 is bigger than a half. I know that because if I turn them into sixths, this one would be bigger. So if 2/3 is bigger, then the other two numbers, which are left of 4 and 6, will be 4/6. So I need this one to be smaller than a half. Well, it's not, because a half is equivalent to 3/6. So both of these fractions are both bigger than a half. So this cannot be my solution. So I've tried 2/3. Now I'm going to try 2/4. Right, what is 2/4 equivalent to? Hopefully you're telling me that 2/4 is equal to a half. Well, the problem didn't ask me what was equivalent to a half, it asked me what was bigger than and smaller than. So this cannot be my solution. So if this can't be my solution, then 3/6 can't be either, because that's also equal to a half. So if it can't be 2/3 and it can't be 2/4, by process of elimination, it must be 2/6. So 1/2 in 6 is the same as 3/6. So this is smaller than a half. So if this solution is going to be right, the other digits need to make a fraction that's bigger than a half. So I've got the 4 and the 3 left over. 3/4. Well, if 1/2 is the same as 2/4, 3/4 is definitely bigger than it. So my answer would be 2/6 is less than a half, and a half is less than 3/4. Give yourself a tick if you got that one right. Number 2 is a multi-step problem. So we need to read it first, we need to get our key facts, and then we'll have a go at working it out. So Zach and Jamila made 108 cookies to sell for charity. So my whole is 108. Zach sold 4/9 and Jamila sold 1/3. How many did they sell all together? So this is telling me that all together means I'm going to have to find the total, which means I'm going to add at some point. So for part A, we have got a fraction of an amount question. We need to work out 4/9 of 108. We did this on Friday in the fluency first. So if you're finding a ninth, you are dividing by 9. So to work out 1/9, we need to divide our whole, which is 108, by 9, which would be 12 using my times tables. But I didn't want 1/9, I wanted 4/9. So I need to times it by 4. So 12 was 1/9, times it by 4, 48. So Zach sold 48 cookies. Jamila sold 1/3. So if I'm finding 1/3, I'm dividing by 3. So 108 divided by 3 would be 36. So I did that by, you could either use bus stop division, or I actually use my times tables. I knew that 3 times 30 would be 90, because 3 times 3 is 9, so 3 times 30 is 90. If I'm at 90, I need to add on 18 to get to 108. 3 times 6 is 108, so 30 add 6 would be 36. So this is then telling me how many cookies Jamila has sold. But I wanted to work out how much they sold all together, so I add the 48, I add the 36, I did this in my head, and I got 84 cookies. Give yourself a mark if you got that one right. Next one, what fraction of the cookies were left? Well, for this one, we need to add together Zach's cookies and Jamila's cookies and then take that away from the whole. Well, Jamila sold 1/3, Zach sold 4/9. Can you add these together straight away? No, because the denominator is different. So I need to find the common denominator, which is 9. 4/9 stays the same. 1/3, you times thirds by 3 to get to ninths. So you times the numerator by 3, which is 3. Add these together is 7/9. So I now need to take away 7/9 from the whole, because the 7/9 is the amount that were sold, and I want to know how many were left over. A whole is 9/9. Take away 7/9 should have been 2/9. Give yourself a tick. Question 3 is asking you what fraction of the rectangle is not shaded. Now at first this might look like a bit of an intimidating question, but actually we can work this out really, really easily. So if it's asking us what fraction isn't shaded, we need to work out what fraction is shaded, and we can do that by simply adding these two together. Then once we know how much is shaded, we need to take that away from the whole. So the fraction that is shaded is 1/6, and the other fraction that's shaded is 4/9. I want to add those two together. I can't add them straight away because the denominators are different. So you need to try and find a common denominator. There's lots you could have used, but your smallest common denominator is 18. So I do 6 times 3, so I do the numerator 1 times 3, which is 3. 9 times 2, so I do 4 times 2, which is 8. 3/18 add 8/18 is 11/18. So that's how much is shaded, but I want to work out how much isn't shaded. So the whole would be 18/18, take away 11/18 would be 7/18. If you've got a different number with a different denominator, see if you can simplify it and see if you can get 7/18 by dividing that fraction. Okay, number 4 says the distance between A and B is 1¼ kilometres, and I've labelled that here. The distance between A and C is 4 3/5 of a kilometre. So what's the distance from B to C? So to help me work this out, I've drawn a bar model. So all the way from A to C is 4 3/5. Now going from A to C, but splitting it into A to B and then B to C, so it's the same length altogether, it's the same total. A to B is 1¼ kilometres, and I need to work out B to C. I need to work out this second part here. So what operation am I going to be doing? Hopefully you're telling me I'm going to be doing subtraction, because I know the whole. I want to take away this part here, so I'm left with this part. So I'm doing 4 wholes and 3/5, take away 1 whole and 1/4. So to begin with, I'm going to turn these into the same denominator. So a common denominator of 5 and 4 is 20. So not forgetting my wholes. So I've times my denominator by 4, so times my numerator by 4, which is 12. Then I've times my denominator by 5, so times my numerator by 5, which is 5. Okay, 4 wholes take away 1 whole would be 3 wholes. 12/20 take away 5/20 would be 7/20. Can I simplify that? No, because 7 is a prime number and 20 is not divisible by 7. So there's my answer. Oh, as long as I've put in my units. Give yourself a mark if you've got it right. This question might need a little bit of problem solving. So in a bag of marbles, 38 are green and 22 are red. The remaining 3/8 of the marbles are yellow. How many marbles are in the bag altogether? Well, first of all, if I'm trying to work out what 3/8 is, because I know they're the yellow ones, but I don't know how many that is. If I know that that's the remaining part, what are the green and the red marbles? What fraction do the green and the red marbles make if the green and the red and the yellow equals 8/8 equals the whole, and the yellow marbles are 3/8? That tells me that the green marbles and the red marbles must equal 5/8, because 5/8 add 3/8 would make 8/8, which would make your whole. So I'm going to add the green and the red together. So the green and the red added together is 60 marbles. And I know that 5... Oh, I've put 80th. That should be 8. Sorry. So 5/8, because we know that's what it was, is 60 marbles. Right. So if I know what 5/8 is, how can I work out what 3/8 is going to be then? Well, I'm going to use my fact that 5/8 of this bag is 60 marbles. And I'm going to work out then what 1/8 is. So I divide 5/8 by 5 to work out what 1/8 would be. If I divide 60 by 5, I'm going to get 12. So 1/8 of this bag of marbles is 12 marbles. Right, if I know what that is then, how can I work out how many marbles are in the bag all together? If I want the whole thing, how can I use 1/8 to help me work this out? Well, if I know what 1/8 is, I can work out 8/8. I just need to times 1/8 by 8. 1/8 was 12 marbles, so 12 times 8 is 96. Give yourself a mark. Right, let's have a look at the challenge then. So you need to use the digits 3 and 4 to make the largest possible answer to each one. Well, for the first one, 4/8 times 2/3. Now, you might think that having 4 as the denominator would make a bigger fraction, but you've got to think about the fact that the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces. So if you had a denominator of 100, that means it's cut into 100 pieces, and those pieces then are really small, compared to if you cut it into 2 pieces, those pieces are really big. So if you did 4/8, which would be a half, so that's a big fraction, times 2/3, you would end up with 8/24, which is equal to a third. Same again for the second one. You could have 4/5 and 3/4, or you could have 3/5 and 4/4. Why is it bigger if you've got 4/4? Hopefully you can tell me that 4/4 is the same as a whole, so then it would be a whole and 3/5. For the last one, you can have 3/10 add 4 wholes or 4/10 add 3 wholes. Again, hopefully you can spot it's better to have 4 wholes than 3 wholes because that's going to make your number bigger. So your answer should be 4 wholes and 3/10. So if you haven't already, now is your time to do your reflection. So which of these fractions are larger than a half? So we looked a little bit at this last week. If your numerator is half your denominator, then it's equal to a half. So for 3/8, well, half of 8 is 4. So 4/8 is the same as a half. So 3/8 is therefore smaller. Half of 14 is 7. So 7/14 is equivalent to a half. So if you've got 6/14, it is also smaller. Half of 12 is 6. So 6/12 is equivalent to a half. So if you've got 7/12, it's bigger than 6/12. So it is bigger than a half. Half of 9 would be 4.5. Not that you can have a decimal on top of a fraction, but if you could, it would be 4.5 over 9. And 4 is less than this, so 4 is also smaller than a half. So the only one that is bigger than a half would be 7/12. Well done to everybody. You've done really, really well there. Tell me how many of those you got right on a Google Classroom assignment or on Dojo. If you found that really, really easy and you still want some maths work, have a go on TT Rockstars. Let's see how quick we can get all of our averages, and let's see if we can earn some more coins. Right, see you tomorrow. Bye.